In the art of war, there's a saying, when weak, act strong. When strong, act weak. Not showing all the power all the time means that there is a consistent underestimation that takes place. People drop their guard, and that allows a slipstream of opportunity at every turn. Everything is going to break down first before it can be rebuilt, and when it rebuilds, it won't be the way we've known it before.
Action!
Season 3 leads on from Season 2 in a way that was more emotionally driven than plot driven.
And this is also the first season which was written after the premiere of the first season. We also had time to really work on this story for Season 3. And we could really sort out all the little details and all the little relationships and all the character arcs for the main characters and for the secondary characters.
Our view of the continent is growing all the time. So what's been really fun with this show is being able to expand our vision of what the world looks like with each of the seasons. And we're beginning to grow a sense of the visual breadth of the continent. We had a chance to build the environments that were incredibly expansive and allowed for in-camera action that I think really supports and helps with the performances and the storytelling.
And it's so much easier to work now, because now we have all the crew knowing Witcher to the bone, to the core, and you don't have to explain basic elements and basic relationships, which is exciting.
Everyone is so much more invested in what they do, and everyone now takes their sort of own creative pride. And to me, it just makes a better product. Season 3 starts out in a place where we're just with a family who's learning to be together for the first time. And starting a season with sort of that emotional engine to it was really exciting.
It's also based on Time of Contempt, which is the second book of the saga. Among the fans, this book is considered as one of the best books of the series.
It gives us the chance to really invest in these characters in the way that we needed to invest in them.
You really want to hide? You dye that mop? No one's looking for the black fucking wolf.
Season 3 marks the first time that Geralt, Yen, and Ciri are all in the same place at the same time, and that their stories are moving forward together. But Ciri has an immense power that she doesn't understand and she can't control yet. And what she needs to do is have magical training now.
Geralt and Yennefer have an idea that there's something different and unique about her, but they're still very much in the dark about whether this is regular magic and just poorly executed, or whether this is something far, far more.
We begin quite slowly, in a way, with them, in a dynamic that we haven't seen them in before. They both care deeply for Ciri. Yennefer's is kind of that newfound love.
We obviously start Yen and Ciri in a really rocky place. I mean, Yen was willing to sacrifice Ciri in order to gain her power back. At the time of that choice, she didn't know who Ciri was. She didn't know what Ciri meant. She certainly didn't know that Ciri was Geralt's child of surprise.
They're re-establishing their relationship as Yennefer is teaching Ciri how to harness her magic. That helps to bring them together.
So when we start the season, they are on the run. They are going from place to place, trying to outrun the people who are chasing them, and as we know, the whole continent is chasing them.
The Redanians are after Ciri, Emir is after Ciri, and then Brienne is after Ciri. And what we learn is that Brienne is working for someone powerful, and we don't know who that person is. What I wanted to get a sense of is that these characters have to travel a lot.
Locations were really important to us this season because we really wanted to open up our world. We wanted to try to find an environment that gave us a number of different feelings. So we looked at Croatia and Italy and Slovenia as a really interesting triangle of locations that in the end gave us a sort of summer, winter, spring, autumn within reach of each other during the same time frame.
My favorite location, I think, was this lake in Italy where we shot this winter house We see there for the first time that Ciri can skate and tries to teach Yennefer how to skate.
Witcher fans love ice skating. It shows up in the books a lot in various ways. And we actually hadn't paid any homage to this yet. And so I still remember when Freya Allen read the pages and it has Ciri doing like elaborate Olympic jumps on ice. And she was like, wait, what?
I asked for a lot of lessons because I want to be like a Olympic ice skater by the end, which of course I was not. And then we got there on the day and it was like plastic ice. It wasn't even real ice, so we couldn't even properly move.
I can barely walk on the floor. And then I would love to have known what everyone was thinking as they were watching us prance around on ice.
In fact, on one of the takes, we just fell on top of each other.
Yeah. Freya ends up on top of Anya and they're laughing and someone has to roll off, they can't get back up. And it was such just a gorgeous, real moment that we ended up putting it in the show.
So it was exciting to see this little detail, which shows that we try not to forget about all the things which are important for our characters. So the structure of original books is very, very interesting because we are very often jumping forward and jumping back in the narrative of the book. So to make it more streamlined, we decided to use some of the scenes from the previous book, some of the scenes from the next book to make it more as one timeline. But we also have a few scenes from the first book, which is Blood of Elves. We wanted to give more space in season 2, and we also thought that some of those scenes, like Battle of Sherwood, would be such a great opening to season 3.
Sherwood is a place, is sort of a sacred ground, and we learn a little bit about the elf struggle there. And this could be, the end of this population.
They fought for her, and they died with her name on their lips and their honor and integrity intact.
The big sets can be amazing. It's a very good example of remnant elven architecture that hasn't been touched, so it's a ruin in kind of quite a beautiful way. It's an environment that has a few layers to it, so it allows for a fair amount of movement within a space.
And so Wolfgang and I and his team designed a one-take sequence for me, and it had no stitch cuts. We did a true one shot.
Many people know the Blaviken fight, for example, on the first season.
Fuck.
But it's not just another one take, it has a different rhythm. We have a very special way how to approach fight choreographies. Each fight what you will see in the season has a different tone and a different camera technology. And the cameraman, he is a part of the fight scene.
Camera operator. He's an integral piece because he's dancing with us. He needs to know exactly where we are, we need to know exactly where he is, to sell impacts, to sell hits, to sell emotional beats. Mostly, he wasn't even using a monitor. He was just using his naked eye and knowing where the lens was going to be and what it was going to look like. And that requires an extraordinary amount of skill. We must have done 90 plus takes just to make sure that it was right.
Neutrality. It won't get you a statue, but it'll certainly help in keeping you alive.
So from the beginning, Geralt has talked a lot about being neutral. He's very clear he doesn't want to get involved in politics. He doesn't want to get involved in sort of the petty skirmishes of people in the continent. He exists for a reason, that is to kill monsters. Of course, one of the funny things that Jaskier points out to him in season 1 is that he always says he's not going to get involved, and he always ends up getting involved. That's because he can't pull himself from this sort of white knight hero complex that he has. He wants to do good in the world. His neutrality really comes into question because not just is he choosing to sort of join into political battles, but he realizes that's what he has to do. To protect her, they actually have to split up again. We wanted a place for Geralt to go and start to uncover what exactly is happening, why people are after Ciri. Vilgefortz has been experimenting on a lot of young women in order to perfect the magic, perfect the spells, perfect what he needs to use Ciri for. The flesh monster is the remains of those women and is one of the grossest monsters that we've ever created.
The flesh monster was probably the most complex monster we've put together in terms of how the design of it evolved, because it was a monster that needed to involve multiple departments simultaneously. It was such a complex organism that we had to work in tandem with VFX, but also with stunts to create something that was more of an idea for a monster.
We basically try to be empathic. What is the monster like? What does it feel? What does it think? Does it think?
How that moves and how we interact with it is what was ultimately going to create its final form. So in the end, until we were actually able to shoot the fight sequence, there really wasn't any way to know exactly how we'd want to kind of position everything.
Why are you hurting us?
Then everybody start understanding the size of the monster. What can the monster do? So instead of let him fight against nothing, we use 3 of our stunt women simulating the monster. This is how we start building the scene. And at the end now, it's a very powerful scene. I use a lot of focus close-ups on him to read his mind in that moment.
And in that moment, Geralt realizes he's got to do something terrible in order to protect someone.
The creatures this season were incredibly fun. There's a sort of shorthand that we now have in understanding what our creatures want to be in relation to our world. One of the things we've begun to explore a little bit more as we've kind of gotten further and further into the creature design is thinking about the movement language of the characters, not just how they look visually, but how their movement language might work.
We have an amazing battle on the chain ferry with Aeshna, which is one of our monsters, which is again one of the stories fans were expecting and haven't seen yet.
That was so fun. I just love the fights. And then getting to do one with Henry, I mean, I've been waiting for this moment. It's the first time you see them fight properly together.
And this is something that Wolfgang and I worked on, and I asked Wolfie to make the fight more about Ciri rather than about Geralt. And it is a rather alternate father-daughter moment where he allows her to do the work, and he will cover her when she overexposes herself. If you watch the fight carefully, you'll see there's a couple of strikes that he puts in there which would have otherwise killed Ciri, but he's letting her do all the work, and it's putting her training to the test.
It's a big special effects rig, a lot of moving parts. It's on a gimbal to do a fight in that contained space. It's a challenge. Then we start creating a style for each character. So not all the characters we see in the season, they're fighting the same style. Their style is tailored to their talents.
So Ciri's style is all built around what Geralt would have taught her, and so my style is very similar to Geralt's style. She's more agile and is obviously lighter, so can move more easily. It's all about finding that style, and that's what Wolfgang is so amazing at doing.
You're not just fighting your fight, you fight for the camera. And you need to know or feel where the camera is. And Freya, she is amazing. She is super, super committed, and she did, you know, almost everything herself.
There's nothing I want more than to return to our normal life.
We have to protect more of these women from getting hurt. That's why we have to go to Aretuza.
Geralt, Yen, and Ciri realize that there's really no escaping all of these forces that are after Ciri. And so they have to take her back to Aretuza. That is the best chance of protecting her.
Aretuza and the Thanid Island is an environment that we've been in since season 1, but we're sort of slowly opening up what we understand about how it works, how we approach it, what the geography of the Thanid Island is, and creating very much a visual language that is part of the Elven world, and how that is different from what we introduce as the human elements of architecture.
And when Yennefer comes back there, she also discovers that maybe she can change the world of magic. Maybe she can change the way the magic is being handled and the structures which are built around it.
We can all be our best selves for the Brotherhood.
In the books, it's a little bit more politically complex, and we decided to simplify it a little bit and put it all on Yennefer, so Yennefer is the main force behind calling for the conclave.
It's a gorgeous, huge party, 100, extras, 25 of our main cast. It's a 2-episode block and probably the 2 biggest episodes that we've ever produced.
And it's something where we also kept a lot of original dialogues from the books.
Yen's been hiding you for far too long.
Yennefer's a bit of a politician when she goes back to Aretusa. And of course, she has to stand out. So we try to kind of design a dress that would stand out. And it's got beaded, beautiful material that in certain lights, it reflects the colour of her eyes, violet. All my belly's out, which wasn't most comfortable. Don't think I'll ever do that again. Make that choice again. I'm sure there are elements of her getting to dress up for Geralt. And knowing where that will lead to.
And Geralt isn't a party boy. He doesn't like going to these things. Certainly doesn't like getting all trussed up and served to these sorceresses like a Christmas turkey.
What's the melange?
It's a dance. It's not optional.
And right under the exterior of that beautiful ball is a mystery that's being unraveled. That mystery explodes in the following episode.
So we bring everyone, all the players, into the one roof and then drop that roof on them.
So we have a huge battle with the use of magic, which we never seen before, really, to this extent. And when I read it on the script, I couldn't believe that we are trying to do it in television. We had to simplify politics behind it, because Planet Coop is very, very complex politically, because at the same time we have Nilfgaard, Redania, Mages, Scoia'tael, and Vilgefortz playing all their games.
One of the big changes that we did, or one of the big decisions we made, is to place it in the middle of our season, not at the end. And that's because if you're saying that there's a huge event that changes everything, you need to start to see how it changes things. We didn't want to end the season on that cliffhanger. We wanted to start to see how Yennefer shifted after the Thanad coup, how Geralt shifted, how Ciri, she moves through the world in a different way. Some of the characters that we have known from the very beginning are taken from us. And Tissaia is probably the one that is most heartbreaking to me as a writer, and I think heartbreaking to our cast, as Miana Bering is amazing in this role and quite a tough but maternal figure on the show, and that's who she is as a human.
Tissaia is totally broken. Everything she loved, everything she cared about, everything she believed in has been left in ruins. And she feels inherently responsible for it. She doesn't see herself as having the capacity to be of use anymore. And I think that's ultimately why she chooses to take her own life, really.
When I'm talking about this, and I read this script, and I read this book, and I read this story so many times, I'm still getting emotional. It's still moving, because this is one of my favorite characters there, and we have to say goodbye.
The world is so much more lonely when you haven't got that person that you look up to, because then you're responsible for everything. Tissaia's death must spark a kind of truly a new beginning for Yennefer.
One of the things that Tissaia's death does is it empowers other mages, because they want to continue what she started. And Yen is actually one of the ones who heads up the Lodge of Sorceresses that we will get into in later seasons.
We decide how we move forward.
One of the things that we got questioned the most about in season 1 is in episode 8 when Vilgefortz and Kahir are fighting. And we actually see Kahir very handily defeat Vilgefortz. And fans were in an uproar. Vilgefortz is the most powerful mage. There is no way he could have literally killed Kahir just by looking at him. And there's a great moment where Vilgefortz explains this season that the hardest thing for him about this long game is that he had to hide his skills.
Knowing I could take any life at any time, it was exasperating.
When we see his power really demonstrated for the first time, it is against Geralt. Again, we went back to the books as the source here, and it was really interesting to look at these chapters because we've never had Geralt beaten this badly.
Well, the fight with Vilgefortz was obviously something which no one's expecting. Wolfgang and I wanted to make sure we built that into the story, and it's an incredibly technical fight.
It's very, very iconic. It's super important in the books. For us was a challenge to match in the best way. First, we separate the actors and we train each actor and bring them to a level that we feel comfortable to put them together. We were very blessed with Mahesh, who's playing Vilgefortz. He trained so much.
I mean, I've enjoyed using the staff in the past from a Tai Chi, perspective, but this is another level altogether. The thing's heavy. It's real heavy, and it's made to break bones. My forearms are still hurting.
We see the defiance of Geralt, we see the excellence and the power of Vilgefortz. And I think it's masterful work by Wolfgang. That's not the sort of thing you can build with any second unit director, just any stunt coordinator. That requires excellence.
There's a kind of a visual poetry about the way, Geralt is broken. I mean, his spirit first, and then his body. The audience will not have seen him in this kind of vulnerability up until now.
Because suddenly we see this warrior, this monster hunter who is very skilled, and he's living this life of a witcher for 100 years, and he's defeated for the first time, and almost dies. And it's shocking. It's something nobody was prepared for. It was something which made him more human.
Then always when we're writing a season, we keep in mind where we want the next season to start. So there are actually a couple of parts of Baptism of Fire that come up at the end of this season. That started us thinking, how can we really use Jaskier's music more integrally in the show?
Joe Trapanese and myself started writing the song Enchanted Flowers. Something that we really wanted to bring in was this almost a dirge, an elven dirge that gives Jaskier a chance to survive. It's almost in Dungeons and Dragons terms, it's the roll of the dice, really. He has to meet his friend, and the only thing that he can do is sing and tell a story. So these songs are now no longer being used as just a performative or cathartic way of communicating his own emotions or the emotions of the continent, but he's using them as a way to connect with people and specific people. They may not be on everyone's Spotify top 100 at the end of the year, but I think it's more characterful for me.
Head as our dude. He needs you. Don't lag behind.
He eventually meets Geralt after the Battle of Thanedd and sees the sheer extent to which people can be hurt. There is an incredible emotional rawness to those scenes on the page, and Henry and I have always talked about trying to find those unspoken moments and the well of friendship between them.
If he needs my help, he has it.
It's amazing to watch it play out, watching the vulnerability that Henry brings to this character, watching the people around him see the father figure of this family broken and beaten and yet unbowed.
It is a Geralt who has to find the sense of life again, which is a beautiful part of the story.
We have spent this entire season building up that Geralt, Yen, and Ciri are finally a family. They realize they not only need each other, but they want to be together. They choose to be a family. And when that explodes, it's the fact that Geralt has lost these two people that he so clearly loves so deeply. That's what causes him to give up on his neutrality, because he will do anything to get them back.
And it's an old quote from Rocky. It doesn't matter how many times you are hit. It matters how many times you can get up after a hit. So that's the journey for Geralt for the future. One of the more important things about Ciri is that we will slowly discover that she is the main character of the Witcher saga. Not Geralt, not Yennefer, it's Ciri's story.
She ends up going to the Korath Desert, which is basically a huge turning point within her journey because she's essentially faced with herself throughout the time she's there. Falka introduces to her this potential other path you can take, which is brutal. Then the fire draws her in and Falka draws her in, her voices, and she basically relinquishes her powers. In the books, the way I read it's like she's almost slightly lost her soul a bit. You usually see this fight behind Ciri's eyes and it's just dead. It's going to be a short moment in the show, but I wanted to bring a bit of that because that really hit me when I read it in the books.
Now, we've seen her power accidentally kill people before. We saw that as early as season 1. But Geralt has really tried to impress on her that the idea of taking a human life, of making that choice, has huge consequences.
We learned she's powerful. We learned that this power can either turn good or bad, but even Ciri is not really sure who she really is. The more she discovers how to control what's inside of her, the more she asks herself a question. Maybe she is the villain of the story. For a person that young, it's a devastating question to ask, because everybody wants to be a hero of their own story, and what if they are a villain?
Call me Falka.
And we discover that maybe her real destiny is not to become a witcher, a savior, somebody who is good. Maybe it's to become a villain and to actually destroy the world.